Alright, hello. Welcome to another yapping session video where today we're gonna yap about, well, one of the worst designed warframes in the game that D has tried to make better with the completely wrong approach, and I really want to talk about and show how, or proposing some changes to make him better. This warframe is Frost. I absolutely hate him. I love his design and how he looks like, but I really hate him in terms of abilities. He seems like ultra boring, and in general, I just haven't played him apart from leveling him up just because of that. Because I really, really don't like how his abilities work and how he currently functions. So, we're gonna be looking at how to make Frost better, and so examples of how his ability works while in game. So, I have written this insanely big text document. We're gonna go over it, and I'm gonna explain to you like everything, literally everything. So, let's start with his passive. So currently, his in-game passive is pretty simple. Any enemy that strikes Frost with a melee attack has a 10% chance to be frozen. So if we go here, we have literally level 1 butchers. And we just spawn them. When they attack us, there is a small chance that, yep, there we go, one of them will freeze. And they'll freeze for quite a long time, but in general, do I need to say that this is useless as well? Probably not. So, one of the worst passives in the game. Now, let's change it. So, Frost, his passive, enemies affected by cold damage give Frost increased ability range for the duration. Range is 4% per stack. So this is influenced from Ember's passive. Ember is a warframe that revolves around heat damage, and any kind of heat damage you do increases your ability strength. So with this rework, I want to have the idea, since cold damage is getting buffed, that we could use said cold damage on Frost in order to increase the effectiveness of his kit in general. So change his kit entirely, but also increase the effectiveness of his kit through his passive by kind of encouraging players to mod and build and do cold damage to the enemies, because that is what he's gonna scale with. Now, it is what he's gonna scale with, and I want to kind of keep that theme. I want to make him like a DPS tanky tank, DPS tanky whatever support thing. I don't know. We'll see. But in general, right now, what he has is pretty much no identity in the game. He just has a lot of overguard, some damage. That's about it. In terms of passive, I would probably leave the augment the same. Current augment is called Biting Frost. And what it does is it gives you 200% critical chance and 200% critical damage against frozen enemies. I think this is still absolutely amazing to keep in the game, but if it was gonna make him too broken, we could tone down the stats, because they're gonna say that the abilities go crazy with this rework, or the idea of this rework rather. So, first ability, his current first ability right now, I don't know what happened there and why it's frozen, but it is freeze. It basically, you just throw a pillar of ice that freezes the enemy, and then it deals area damage if it's on an AoE as well. So we spawn the butchers again, we just throw it, and deals a small AoE. The most basic of abilities. Has auto targeting, can be spammed, whatever. So I like first abilities being pretty simple in terms of what they do, but I want them to be a bit more useful in terms of what they do. So his new first ability would be like this. So Ice Spikes. Throw guided missiles of ice, freezing targets in place and soldering their armor by 40%. Number of missiles scale with range, armor reduction scales with strength, and the damage scales with strength. And this would allow you to have some kind of armor strip capability on your kit while also giving a bit of CC to get your passive up and get some free headshots. So in general, this would be a really good ability to pair alongside the rest of his kit in order to have some kind of Ash Shuriken in some sort, but similar. Oh, shit. So similar to, Ash Shuriken. That is kind of what I wanted as an idea. And his augment, which is pretty much the same freeze force, hold to give 100% cold damage to weapon. It's literally the same as current freeze force. Didn't even change the name. The only change that I did was that enemies that are frozen take double cold damage. So if you have modded cold damage through the augment, through weapons, through anything, enemies that are dealt the cold damage will also receive double damage from Frost itself, himself. So that's the first ability. Already quite strong. A big improvement, I think, from what we have currently. And in general, I want first abilities to be useful so that they're not immediately subsumed by something like Nourish, which is infinitely better in most situations. I feel like if Cold is buffed and Frost is, buffed by cold damage, then Frost's one in this version with his augment that gives cold damage to weapons would actually help him a lot. Now, his second ability for the in-game is Ice Wave. So Ice Wave, it just throws a wave of ice in front of Loki or Frost, my bad, and I didn't get energy. Oops. And it just freezes enemies in place as well as killing them. It's a pretty decent ability in general. It does quite a bit of damage, and honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world. And its augment is Ice Wave Impedance. And what this does is it leaves the frozen trail down for 12 seconds and it slows any enemy that comes into contact with it. So this is one of the better abilities for him, in my opinion, because it provides some bit of CC, and that's about it. But in general, it could use some help as well. Now, Frost right now has 0 tanky abilities. The only way to make Frost tanky and tank in the meta is to put his fourth ability, augment, and then just spam your 4 over and over and over and over again until you just keep overguard up all the time. But on higher levels, overguard get destroyed instantly, and it can get very annoying to play Frost and very energy hungry. So I really hate it. So instead, I decided to make his second ability, as in Revenant and Rhino and all that, a tanky ability. But this one is kind of different. So Frost absorbs the damage of incoming attacks for 6 seconds, becoming immune to all damage. So the first 6 seconds after you cast the ability, you're immune to all damage. And when the duration ends, Frost takes 60% less damage to his shield, and 100% of the remaining damage dealt to him is redirected to the attackers as cold damage. This means that when Frost takes damage from enemies, it's stored, and 100% of the damage that is stored is then, every time you get shield damage, then you lose a bit of that, but you redirect it to the attackers, and most of all, your shields are being affected by a damage reduction while also having damage reduction themselves. And this can stack with other sources of damage reduction, like adaptation, if you want to go like that, or if you want to go something like Mirage's Eclipse with the damage reduction from there, and you can become really tanky like that. So how it works then for the damage part is attacks use 10% of the stored damage until depleted. So this means if Frost has mitigated a 10,000 damage with 100% strength, then the first enemy that attacks will take 10,000 cold damage, the next enemy takes 9,000, the next enemy takes 8,000, and so on until he runs out of the ability. And then invulnerability scales with duration, and the percentage usage per attack would scale with strength with a cap at 300% strength. So I don't think it's a good idea to scale the damage that the ability deals. Rather, just make it so that you get scaling, you keep the ability for longer by building for ability strength. So I think that's a way better idea to approach this. And since he gets passively range, I think range can be kind of toned down a bit. You can easily go for a build for 145% range on this guy, and it would be incredible. It would be just enough for you to start getting a lot of value from your abilities by stacking your passive. So basically, this is how it works. For each of Frost's shields broke 60% of the damage that the enemy deals. So if your enemy deals 10,000 damage, you have 60% damage mitigation plus 50% from 10 of shields, and you would be very tanky. You would mitigate a lot of it. So the trade-off is if you're in health, if you're dealt damage to health, then your health just takes normal damage as it always would. So using this, I'm kind of trying to make him a shield tank. I don't think we have many amazing shield tanks in the game currently, and I would love to see one. The only real viable pure shield tanks in the game that I'm thinking of right now is literally Hildren and Yareli, and that is it. There are issues with shield tanking when it comes to something like toxin damage and the likes of that, but overall, I think this is a good way to approach shield tanking, especially because this ability also gives invulnerability for a very long period of time as well. So, the augment for this ability, I called it Titan's Fury. Um, and it says that during an invulnerability, Frost gains melee critical chance. I think this is absolutely amazing. Whenever you are invulnerable and you have the advantage to actually get close to the enemy, you can use your melee weapon, and melee weapons, especially with Sanokai right now, are super strong, so extra melee critical chance is always welcome. And then during the armor part, Frost gains primary and secondary weapon status chance, scaling with strength, obviously both of them. So this is kind of a nuts augment in my opinion. If you are a good Frost, you could easily use this augment and get the most out of all of your setup, because obviously primary and secondary status chance is some insane stats. Status chance is always amazing on any primary or any secondary, while critical chance, 10 exists, heavy attack scale of critical chance twice, so it is obviously absolutely amazing. Up next is his third ability. So his current third ability is the thing that I hate the most about him and the thing that we need to change the most about his kit. Snow Globe. Snow Globe's idea of having a circle that enemies can't enter is good. However, it is executed poorly in the fact that you can shoot through it even if you're an ally, and that it scales with range. So it's kinda doo-doo, honestly. It's kinda horrible, and I hate it. So we need to change it. Now you may say, "Oh my god, but I need to protect the objective." You don't need to protect the objective. You are in no need of protecting the objective for like 5 years now. So don't worry about it. Third ability, we call it Avalanche. If you remember, Avalanche is normally his fourth ability, but we're changing that. So his third ability is gonna be called Avalanche now. Frost attacks all enemies in front in a wave of snow, knocking back enemies upon stopping or colliding with any object. Enemies are pulled towards the middle, grouping them up and slowed until frozen for a small duration. So this reminds me kinda of Stynax. So Stynax is one. If you hit a target and then you pin him to the wall, then he creates this vortex around, and this was kind of the idea as well. So you just throw your ice wave, that is the avalanche, and then the first enemy that will collide with the wall or stop from the avalanche, he will then just grab all the enemies and vortex them around the area. So that is the idea behind that. Now, obviously, the range of the ability is increased by range, and the range of the pull of the ability is also increased by range. And then the targets are in the end frozen, so the freeze time duration, freeze time is increased by duration. Slow to freeze time and damage increased by strength. Yep. So, it groups them up and then it slows them until they're frozen for a small duration, so this is all the stuff that are affected. So strength will affect how fast they will freeze after they are grouped, and freeze time, it's not gonna be a lot, but duration will help it. So you keep the enemies in place and kill them in your AoE attacks, and I think that's really good, especially with AoE being so meta right now. Grouping up enemies is always a really, really nice strat, especially if you like melee weapons that hit hard in a group of enemies. Melee influence and the likes of that, absolutely amazing. So now, the kind of identity that I didn't want to lose from, the funny ability, Snow Globe, is basically this on the augment. So I called it Repel Avalanche. The idea is obviously from Repel Bastille. I like repelling Bastille. So repelling Avalanche, my bad. I will change it. It's basically, I like having similar ideas in the game and abilities doing similar things in general, just in different characters. So Avalanche becomes a circle instead of a line. It functions the same, but instead of grouping and freezing enemies, it lingers in place. Enemies that come in contact with the storm are frozen after 2 seconds. And the freeze here is way, way longer, obviously. So you create a circle small circle around you that can get insanely big, obviously, if you're scaling with range. And then any enemy that comes in contact with that circle will be frozen in place for a pretty heavily long time. So this is your kind of defensive build if you want to go in mobile defense and AFK, if you want to go in mission and chill, not let the enemies damage the objective. This is kind of the idea that you would use the augment, and obviously since your passive scales cold damage, then you could recast this after, get bigger range, and then recast this after, and etc. And you would get a lot of enemies frozen. You would probably hit the cap of frozen enemies by doing this. And obviously this is really, really strong. But, when the ability is over or you choose to recast it, all of the frozen enemies are grouped in front of Frost and are susceptible to finishers. So this idea is for setups that would utilize melee crescendo, obviously. Any melee crescendo enjoyers would absolutely love this idea, especially because if we have a finisher build kind, we could easily get level cap viability just by doing this, which would be extremely dumb but extremely fun in my opinion. And overall, it's just a good way to balance CC with killing, because right now if we just left this ability to just be an insanely big circle that would CC enemies around the circle, then your teammates would be angry at you because, for example, on a defense mission, you would need to go and search for the enemies all around in order to, try to see where the fuck did they get frozen, where do I need to go to find these frozen enemies to actually kill them, because they are not allowing me to progress through the waves. It's absolutely annoying. And this is why I added this final touch of frozen enemies after the ability is over, just all together are grouped in front of force. So it's like when it closes the ability, I guess it drags them over, all of them together. The effect could be pretty freaky, but I don't know. This is kind of the idea, So yeah, overall, so far the abilities, as you can see, are very strong. Then this is why I said augment can stay same, but if it's too strong, then we can nerf it. Obviously, numbers can be toned down in a way that this is not completely overpowered, and it can help the character a lot overall. So I don't think it will be an issue trying to get all of these abilities in, but I think it could be an issue if some augments are completely overtuned with the numbers, obviously. And now his first ability that, once again, I can't see the icon, Avalanche. So this is the most important ability right now in his kit, especially with the augment. It basically allows for enemies to be instantly frozen, and instantly frozen enemies are obviously useless. They are also armor stripped, and they are also susceptible to being destroyed, and Frost gains overguard from the augment. So overall, this is the insane ability from Frost, and having this AoE is really nice, especially when paired with his passive that you deal more damage against the frozen enemies. But I think overall we just need a change, right? So fourth ability, the new one, is called Empowering Blizzard. So Frost shatters his armor. This is a visual effect. He is temporarily losing his shield buff, and he's buffing his allies' fire rate and attack speed. So kind of the second Wisp mode, but for every ally in affinity range, or not in affinity range, but in range. For each kill to enemies affected by cold damage, Frost will replenish 200 shields, and while under the effects of Empowering Blizzard, excess overshield is converted into overguard. Shield per kill is affected by strength, and the ability lasts for 30 seconds and scales with duration. Ally movement speed and fire rate is affected by strength, and the range of the effect is also affected by range. And what I mean by the range of this effect is like when you cast for his new fourth ability, Empowering Blizzard, at the moment you cast, you would have a range that you would spread all the effects to your allies, and this range is affected by ability range. That's kind of what I mean. So some notes are, even if Frost replenishes his own shields and overguards, and he buffs his allies' fire rate and attack speed, only he gets the shield per kill, and not his allies. Also, I think this one is absolutely bonkers. Like, excess overshield is converted into overguard. Like, if you can get into kind of a killing spree by using your abilities and avoiding damage, you can get some insane amount of overguard using this. So that would be really cool, especially since if you need to recast his ability, you would only lose the shield. So you could keep the overguard and then just keep replenishing shield and then keep replenishing overguard and just go infinite until obviously enemies start dealing too much damage. Now, obviously there is an augment for this because Frost has 5 augments. He has augments for his passive, his 1, his 2, 3, 3, and his 4, so we need to keep them. And allied kills will grant 25% of the shield per kill value that you would have yourself, and your allies also get the shield for every kill, but they're not getting the overguard part, only the shield. Why is this happening? Well, I want his 4 to kind of feel like an Equinox 4 but on steroids, you know? So Night Equinox, what she does is every time you kill an enemy in her aura, then she gets shield per kill. But then she stops the ability and she heals everyone to full, essentially. So this is kind of Equinox's 4th ability, but made a bit easier. Obviously, Equinox as well, I would love to see her getting buffed. Not reworked, because I think her abilities are really cool. I just think she needs to get buffed so she's made easier to build for. But if Frost became something like this, especially without the augment, then his 4th ability would be amazing, because when you consider pairing it with your 2nd ability, you have an ability that allows you to take less damage to shields, and an ability that allows you to replenish your shield. So when you combine these two together, you become an absolute menace of a tank, and then you're buffing your attack speed, you're buffing your cold damage, you're buffing your ability range, and your ability range can lead to some pretty wacky stuff. Like armor shredding, people just vortexing all around you, in front of you, and you have so many options to work with. And in general, his gameplay would be way more active. It would be way more fun in terms of ability synergies and gun synergies and all that. He would love to be building cold damage in order to empower his abilities. And in general, I think this would be something like the correct direction to go for. Maybe not as strong as I've made him here, because these are changes that would make him very, very strong, and some passives could be completely removed, or some augments could be toned down, like Titan's Fury. I think Titan's Fury is an insane augment. Like, it's just an idea, but looking at it, I just think it's completely outright busted. So these are just some thoughts that I have, because I think Frost right here, he has some incredible visual design as a Warframe, but he is so far behind in terms of ability. He has nothing going for him. He has just these boring visuals with lackluster passives that do nothing. Every ability feels the fucking same. Like, you know? He just doesn't feel good to play. And I want to change it. I would love to see Pablo or anyone else just from DE looking at this video, taking some ideas that I have here, maybe like anything. I'm not even a Frost player. I just think these are like towards the correct direction, because like, I mean, especially his second ability, we need this on some Warframe. Like, come on. We need some kind of ability like this on some Warframes so we can like play shield tank Warframes and just do stuff about them. I think if this went through, like as a rework, his 2 and 4 should be exactly the same as I have him here. Not even like a slight difference. Exactly copy pasted. This would be so cool. And you can like leave one the same as it is right now. It would be absolutely fine, since the augment would still remain the same. And screw it, you could like replace his 3 with his 2 or something, and just have Ice Wave Impedance on your 3 instead of your 2. And that could unironically work. I'm just thinking like Avalanche on his 3 doing this, and then having this insanely good and incredible utility augment on you. You know, that stuff like this could be really fun to work around with, but that's just me. So yeah, this is kind of the first rework. I wish I could like kind of show you somehow, but I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not anything like that. I'm just here to provide ideas, and I did as best as I could to kind of visualize what it would look like, you know? So for every ability. And in general, I just want to see this guy get reworked, because goddamn, he is not bad, but he is extremely boring right now and very lackluster. So I just really want to see a rework come to him. And before people say about Chroma, well, Chroma, I don't think he needs a rework on his abilities in general. I would definitely rework his 4. His 4 is completely outdated. But in general, I think a visual rework mostly would fit him way, way better than a normal rework. Because his 2 and 3 are absolutely insane now. His first ability, even though it's a joke, you can increase the numbers or have some tweaks that can make it very viable, like being able to use it while shooting and then getting a free galvanized aptitude proc or something like that. Or you could do other stuff with it, like making it a small buff, like, you know, imagine his first being like Ember 1, where you could have an augment that would buff your guns or something like that, so you could unironically just keep it and then do something with the rest. You can fix Chroma way, way easier than you can fix Frost. Like, Frost needs a complete rework. I like zero of his abilities. Literally, zero of his abilities are good. Snow Globe needs to go. This needs to be, you know, buffed at least. This needs to go. This needs to be changed a bit. And this needs to absolutely go or change visuals because it doesn't do anything right now. In general, I just hope that people actually take this serious and we may get some traction onto these changes to maybe see some of them come in the future. Or even if these changes don't happen, say something for Frost come in the future. Because Frost is just not. It's just. He's just so dated. He's just so dated. I'm sorry. I have 126 form on Wisp and 3,000 hours in this game. I can have an opinion about Frost without even playing him, okay? Here, 1600 in game on this account and 600 on my PS4 account. I know what he can be and what he could do with some really, really good changes. But, you know, maybe D already has something for him. We just need to wait. Anyways, this is about it. I hope you like this yapping session. I kind of like to do these to express opinions and then see other people's opinions about some warframes and shit like that. Like, if I was to become some kind of dev to this game ever, the first two things I would touch would be Frost and Siren. And Siren I would only touch because he's problematic in design, not because he's not fun. And I wouldn't change much. I think her spores and fourth ability are fine. But having the strongest Siren build being just gun buffing is absolutely disappointing. I just wish we could have something way better than just gun buffing right now. Not that her other builds are not good. It's just I'm just, you know, I don't like that gun buffing is the best build possible, and I would love for that to change somehow. Maybe not even touching Siren directly, but the other types of damage or something like that. Regardless, that was the video. Thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.